Hello, I'm David Bowman, the tutoring coordinator for BCSCR, which is Building Communities that Support Children's Reading, a project of the Three Rivers Education Foundation. We're going to be taking the next few moments and looking specifically at the topic of reading comprehension. What it is, what do we mean by the term reading comprehension, and what do we know about effective instructional strategies around reading comprehension. So let's start first by the meaning of reading comprehension. Well, obviously, reading comprehension is the end goal for most reading programs. When we do phonics and phonemic awareness and fluency and so forth, what we're really trying to get to is reading comprehension. But interestingly, reading comprehension is not just a single skill by itself. It's really a combination of three very distinct skill sets, which we call understanding, making sense, and applying. Understanding is really what's in the content. We know what the content is. Making sense is where we're considering the message. We're performing an interpretation. We take all the information, we put it together. What does it mean? But it's also the summarizing and the organizing and the synthesizing of the information. All of the things where we are exploring and considering the message, all of that is making sense. And then finally, once we have done that, what do we do with the information? What is the value of the information? How are we using or applying the information? And that's the third skill set. So when we're talking about reading comprehension, we're really talking about the development of all three skill sets. And when we talk about effective instruction, we need to make sure that we're helping kids to develop each of those individual skill sets within reading comprehension. Now, when somebody reads a piece of text, here's what happens. They read the text, and then all of their background knowledge and prior information and outlook and all the other things they know are going to affect the way they interpret the text. But at the same time, there are different ways to analyze the text. So the way that the text is being analyzed also is going to affect the interpretation. So we have the schema and we have the analysis technique. And the result is a very personalized, individualized interpretation of what the text means, which means that different people can read the same text and come up with a different interpretation. The role of the teacher, therefore, is twofold. First, to ask the students, what do you think it means? And then to follow up with the question, and why do you think it means that? And those two questions will lead to some very meaningful discussions about the content and the interpretation and the analysis of the text that are going to help students to develop their reading comprehension. So with that in mind, let's turn specifically to some of the strategies that we know are effective for helping students to develop their reading comprehension. The first, most important, overall, big view strategy is to help students to do something that we call comprehension self-monitoring. Comprehension self-monitoring is what strong readers do. They are always asking themselves, do I understand what it is that I read? And if the answer is no, then they can go back and reread and think and interpret and analyze, make sure they know all the content and so forth. Weak readers don't tend to do that. They just keep going. Which means at the end of the passage, or the end of what the reading selection is, they're left wondering, what was that all about? I have no idea what I just read. So we need to make sure that we are always asking students, do you understand what you've read? Do you understand? Do you understand? Because when we do that, students then begin to ask that question of themselves. The net effect then is students that can identify when they are not understanding the text and what do they need to do to reach reading comprehension. So that's the overall strategy. Now, some specific activities, well, certainly the use of any type of graphic organizers, semantic maps, story maps, all of those things are very useful for helping students to understand the content, to organize it, and to summarize it and begin the synthesizing the information. So those are all very effective. Now, there's lots of different kinds of graphic organizers, different ways to represent the information graphically. The point, though, is that when you are having kids use graphic organizers, select them carefully. What is it that you're trying to accomplish? What will the students be doing with the information? What type of analysis do you want them to perform? And then select a graphic organizer that helps that to occur. The Another very useful strategy is writing. Writing gives students a chance to reflect, spend some time in their own head and reflect on what did they read, what was it about, what is its value, what does it mean, and so forth. It gives them that chance to think critically about the content and to reflect on it and analyze it in some way. Now, graphic organizers and writing become very useful when they help prepare the students for engaging in meaningful discussions. And by discussions, I don't mean just idle talk. Did you like it? Did you enjoy reading it? Those kinds of things. What I'm specifically talking about is opportunities for students to answer questions and ask questions that represent higher levels of thinking, higher levels represented on Bloom's taxonomy. Now, there's a very quick overview of what the different levels are. There's a couple of resources that I put on the tutoring website around Bloom's taxonomy. There's a very good one I put on yesterday that talks about, what is each level, a nice description, but also what are question prompts, what are activity prompts, what are different things that students can do, what are some assessment ideas to address each of those levels of Bloom's taxonomy. When we look at various strategies for increasing reading comprehension, and we look at the relative effects of those strategies, there is no strategy that has a stronger effect on developing reading comprehension than this type of discussion right here, this meaningful discussion that uses higher levels of Bloom's taxonomy. So we do those other things, certainly, but we do them to help prepare students to engage meaningfully in these types of discussions here. So I know this question is going to come up. We have many folks that are in schools or in districts that are stressing the use of depth of knowledge, the 4 levels of depth of knowledge. And I know the question is going to come up, well, if we're doing all this stuff, I'm more comfortable with depth of knowledge, do I have to use Bloom's? No. You can use either one. As it turns out, there's a pretty strong overlap between those two ways of organizing reading activities and reading analysis and reading comprehension. There's a nice overlap between them. So you can choose either one. Regardless of which one you choose, though, there are the same 2 caveats. One is make sure you are in fact addressing all levels, whether it's the 6 levels of Bloom's or the 4 levels of depth of knowledge, and also to use a variety of actions and a variety of skills within each level. See, each one of those has a lot of different skills. So if it's synthesis, for example, there's different ways of synthesizing. If it's, analysis or evaluation, there are different ways to do that. So you want to make sure that you're giving students multiple approaches for addressing a particular level. And the last thing to say about the instructional design is this. Each one of these strategies is best performed in some type of a cooperative learning environment. So for example, with graphic organizers, students should be working on them together. Each student will have more information to add to the process and different ways of thinking about the content to help with the organization and so forth. When we are writing, then we're also sharing our writing and we're asking for feedback and we are asking questions of one another to help extend the information. So we do it individually first, but then we apply it to a cooperative discussion environment. And of course, discussion itself has to be done in a group setting. There's a very specific reason why tutoring groups are 3 or 4, and that is because that is the most effective group size for doing these types of activities cooperatively. So we always want students working with one another. Now, that leads us to a couple of things that we do not espouse, or things that simply don't work for improving reading comprehension. And the first is the issue of sustained silent reading. You have a unique opportunity to provide direct instruction and guidance and prompts and support for students as they develop their reading skills. Well, if we have students sitting over there by themselves, you really miss that opportunity. So we don't support sustained silent reading. Also, any type of individual one-on-one exercises, students working by themselves, recall exercises, they have their place initially, but they are not the end result of reading. We really need to go far beyond just the who, what, when, where, and why. In arts and crafts, although they're a lot of fun and very engaging for students, they don't really support the development of reading comprehension. They might get kids more interested in a book or a story, but as far as helping kids to improve their reading skills, they really don't seem to have much of an effect. Now, the last thing to say about reading instruction is this. We always want to teach skills in conjunction, reading components in conjunction with other reading components for reading comprehension, where even if our emphasis is reading comprehension, we are also providing corresponding instruction with fluency, vocabulary development, and oral language development. So that's really all there is to say about reading comprehension. I could talk about this particular topic all day, but I hope that at least gives you a good sense of what we mean and some of the things that you can do with students specifically to help them to improve their reading comprehension. Thank you very much for all the work that you're doing as tutors. We know how meaningful it is for students, and we know how beneficial it is as they develop their reading skills. So thank you very much. Again, I'm David Bowman with BCSCR. Have a great day.